going to pull it up on here as well. So here we are. I am just double checking that this worked because we are here with StreamYard. Please, yep, there we are. Amazing. Please give StreamYard permission if you would like to comment. Otherwise, I won't be able to see it directly. But Zoom was being special yesterday, so here we are with StreamYard and all the fancy crystals that make me feel like we are in a beautiful cave of possibility and creation. By we, I mean myself. I'm Aurora Light, and with me is my fellow belief repatterning practitioner, Ashley Van Brabant. And she also was part of the Evolve 90-day accelerator for entrepreneurs that we just completed over the last 2 weeks, I suppose. And I'm having such a great time speaking with everyone this week. So if you haven't already gone back to check out, I spoke with Maria Tiburcio and Radiant Soul Nicole yesterday, and those are going to be in the group as well. We'll have about 5 more amazing conversations this week. But for now, Ashley, welcome. So good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for creating the space. I'm really stoked and curious about what we're going to be talking about today.
I think that might be one of my favorite parts of your energy is your curiosity and your willingness to have conversations, including conversations that are ones that not everybody is excited to have. So I'm curious too, where are we going to go with this?
I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I love having the conversations that people usually don't enjoy having, because I think there's just so much richness to be had in conversations, and there's so much humanity that can be revealed in conversations that are sometimes difficult to have. So that's why they're my favorite.
I love that. And we're going to go all over the place. We're going to talk about the evolutionary and transformational processes that we've been through together, that you've been through in your own life, because I know transformation is your favorite. That's
my
just
jam.
Who you are. But we'll also talk about what it is like being an entrepreneur, and not just a regular old entrepreneur, but one who is really following this soul-led, heart-centered mission to support other people on their journey of transformation and evolution as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to dive into that. There's a lot there. This journey has been long coming. So there's some meat in that conversation.
Well, we don't have to start at the beginning, but I would like you to just, in your own words, take a moment to introduce yourself. I have mentioned she's a fellow belief repatterning practitioner. That's how I met Ashley, and belief repatterning is one of the most amazing modalities and techniques that some of you have heard me talk about before. But do you want to tell us a little bit about that part of your entrepreneurial journey and what made you decide to go full into being able to share it with others?
I can, and that is a long story, but I'll make it shorter. I'll give you the condensed version.
I don't think I've heard this, so yes, I'm excited.
Yes, yeah, because belief repatterning is something that was a long time coming. It was something I was searching for that I didn't realize I was searching for until I found it. And so most of my life I've struggled with depression. And I've also simultaneously been really interested in spirituality and alternative health. I started that journey early when I was 12. And it wasn't the kindest time to start a journey to find who you truly are. And just as a side note, maybe some words of wisdom for anybody who's young in their teenage years and is really interested in spirituality. Don't worry about finding yourself until you're past 21-ish, because when you try to find yourself when your brain is not finished developing, it's sometimes not very fun. So go have fun and enjoy what you have. So that's some wisdom for anybody young who's watching, that I learned the hard way. But so that's how I grew up, and I decided to go to school for holistic health back when MacEwan University had their holistic health diploma, because I knew that I liked it. I knew that it was a really strong part of my identity. I ended up reading a book that was about the science of holistic health, and it was written in a really persuasive way that tore me apart, for lack of a better word. My identity was so wrapped up in, it's not the right word, but so immersed in spirituality and alternative health, and to have a book that said, there's no scientific backing to that, really, the word that comes to mind is destroyed me in a way. Mm-hmm. I did decide to finish my diploma, and I was like, okay, it's true for me because I feel it. I feel that it's true. I know it's true inside me. Mm-hmm. But I can't practice it. I can't practice it for other people. And so it led me going adrift a little bit, because what I really wanted in my life was to be a transformational healer, coach, speaker, create workshops and, in personal development. And, that's what I really wanted from my life. And that's what I thought I would be doing. But I couldn't do it in integrity if it didn't actually work or cause change in people's lives. So I went adrift for a little while. I went to Australia. I backpacked around Australia. I worked at a barn. And then what ended up happening, I decided I was going to be an activist, because the environment is really important to me, and tried to start an eco trade show in the small town. Town is a strong word. Hamlet, maybe, of Busby, out in rural Alberta, an eco trade show. Who doesn't want that out in a rural Alberta? And it didn't go well. Yeah, it didn't go well. And it was around that time that I had to really face my struggles and challenges with mental health. And I had to really understand that I had a lot of stigma against it, and that it was real, and I couldn't think my way out of it. And I ended up having a real mental health crisis. And that's how I found belief repatterning, is my good friend, and who I was working for at the barn, her and her husband took the whole team that worked at the barn to Flip Your Switch, which is the belief repatterning workshop. And I was really suicidal at the time. Like, if you look at, they get you to take a picture, and if you look at my picture, it's like that person is in serious pain. I've got my hood up, everything is covered in shadow, and I'm just like staring at the camera with expressionless. And when I left that workshop, I was barely suicidal, and that was a really weird place to be for me. Because it's like I had for so long wanted to die, and then it was like I just wasn't sure about it. So it was this weird in between place where I was like, okay, I don't want to die, but I'm also not sure if I want to live. And so that was my beginning journey in belief repatterning. And I was, I did not realize at the time how deep into depression and mental illness I was, until I started climbing out of it. And even still, I look back and I'm like, oh, wow. Like I was in there good and deep, and it was real. And so I just kept on going to Flip Your Switches. Like every workshop they had, I went. And it was about the second workshop that I went to learn about being a practitioner. And it was so intense for me, because at the time I'm hanging on to my sanity, and I can also feel within me, like, during this time I was shaking a lot. But there was it was like there was this resonance that was so strong, and it really kind of scared me at the time, where I was like, this is me, this whole way of being and of thinking, the whole technique of belief repatterning was me. Because in order to cope with the depression that I had, I jumped through a whole bunch of mental hoops. I was really good at reframing things. I was really good at using my willpower for things. But what I was missing was that rewiring the subconscious part, where you didn't have to reframe anymore. You could just believe the new thing. And so I knew that I needed to become a practitioner. And I think it was a few months later, a couple more workshops later, when I committed. And I had no idea how I was going to pay for it. I mean, at the time I was barely working. I was like, I don't know. I have no idea. But I just know that if I've chosen not to die, and I don't want to be in this in-between place, then maybe I need to walk that road back and choose to live. And so belief repatterning is really what I use to come alive again in so many ways. And that's my journey to belief repatterning.
Wow. I'm just going to let that land for a moment, because it is the first time I have heard that full story. And it's a roller coaster. And I have known you since you joined the program. And I remember you had just joined when we had our first leadership advance, or Beyond the Basics.
Yes.
And we were partnered together. And I just remembered feeling like, damn, you were really good at it for being so new. And I could feel the energy that you held within you, and your ability to hold space, and your ability to work with with the technique that we use, which for people that don't know is an incredible 7-step technique that brings you through from the energy that is draining you and feeling really unsupportive through to something that does feel more supportive, that you can actually rewire your brain to believe instead of that thing that is bringing you down. And it's the fastest, most powerful thing that I've ever found, which is why I also decided to become a practitioner, because it was me too. My superpower was always finding the silver lining with those reframes. And I didn't know how to teach that to other people or to help other people, because I just had a natural affinity to be like, hey, look at this opportunity in this challenge, right? And so having the structure behind that, that was developed by Suze Casey, who is our mentor, has been so profound. But what an amazing shift. And I've heard people call belief repatterning, though we can't legally say this, of course, to be better than therapy.
I've also heard that.
What it can do for your mental, physical, and emotional health. And from the results that I've seen and the results that I've had in my life, it's same thing. Like, you're not the only person that said it. It basically saved your life.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing. And then you went beyond just saving your own life, and now you're able to hold space for other people, right? And share this power to reframe, then repattern all of that stuff that makes it feel so hard, towards what I always think of as like incredible resiliency. It's not that the challenges go away, but your resilience means that you can navigate them with so much more ease.
Yeah, that you can overcome them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so important for the time that we're living in right now. This is not like a fun, nice to have. This is like need to have. That's how it is in my life. It's like belief repatterning is a need to have, or something similar to it. I mean, it doesn't have to be belief repatterning, but we need to have things in our lives that create incredible resiliency and that change our brain to look for solutions to the problems and the challenges that we face.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. I moved my entire family so that my daughter could go to a school and out of school care program that has the pilot of this, because I wanted her to learn those skills. And it's phenomenal to witness what happens when tiny humans without the baggage get a hold of that kind of technique. So I am completely on board with everybody should have these skills. And I know Suze Casey, the developer, has a mission along with many of us to get it into school. So you learn your ABCs, your 1, 2, 3s, and how to repattern those pesky beliefs that are keeping you from being yourself and from feeling like you've got power. And you know, my jam is conscious creation and evolution. And belief repatterning is one of those tools that really supports us in being conscious of what we are creating and cultivating in our life. So I know you would agree with that. You're nodding.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk more about how that process works and how it can support your conscious creation and evolution?
Yeah. So the reason I'm giggling is because this is a part of the belief repatterning technique or piece that when I first with my background in self-development and spirituality and alternative healing and stuff like that, and having that experience of that being ripped, it created a really cynical part in me. It created this part that was like, you know, you guys are off your rockers to think that you could intend something. Like, I was really like bitter. I was really bitter. Yeah, the bitterness that comes from losing a part of who you truly are. Mm-hmm. And I remember Suze being like, you know, this happens in the subconscious, and eventually this will happen for you without you even realizing it. And I was like, baloney. BS. I don't know. I'll see, you know, when it happens to me, then maybe I'll believe it. And it did end up happening to me. And that's one of my favorite things about belief repatterning, is because you choose, like, you know, when you're doing belief repatterning, you choose a new belief, and then you stick it in your subconscious, and then all of a sudden you're unintentionally putting that intention out there, and you're unintentionally, you know, training your reticular activator to redirect and to go in that direction that you chose. But you don't have to do it consciously, which is probably one of my favorite parts, because if I had to do that consciously, it wouldn't have worked, because I had so many monkeys about it. Like, so many monkeys and resistance, and like, oh man, I dragged kicking and screaming through my training in belief repatterning and becoming a belief repatterning practitioner. The resistance was immense.
So I know what you mean about monkeys, but can you tell people that are watching what the monkeys and the rabbits and all of that would mean?
Yeah. So in belief repatterning, we have these really fun terms to just kind of talk about some of the things that come up in belief repatterning and just as a human. And so monkeys are referred to the voices in our head. They might be inner critic voices that are like, yeah, sure. Like, no, that's never going to work because, or there's the, yeah, but what about rabbit? Cousin to the monkey. And so when those come up, one of my favorite parts of belief repatterning and why it worked for me was you actually talked to them. You said like, okay, well, let's go look at that. What about, you know, this other side? Or like, what about this? Or have you ever this? And then all of a sudden the monkey's like, oh yeah, I did. Oh yeah, that is true. Huh. Well, okay then. And then they can follow you as you go onto that new belief. And it's easy. Easy may not be the right word, but it's filled with ease, more ease than trying to, you know, shut the monkey up, because that does not work. Or to ignore the monkey, that doesn't work. Or to use your willpower, which, as somebody who has immense willpower and used it so much she broke it, also doesn't work. But when all of a sudden, when you have a conversation with it, and then you kind of talk it through and bring it through the steps, it will come like right along with you. Which is a lot more fun. It's fun to have monkeys on your side rather than like them against you, because nobody wants like a banana in the face.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think personally that that's one of my favorite things. I mean, the saying is what we resist persists, right? And it's going to be there in our subconscious mind. And that's what tends to sabotage our best efforts at like trying to manifest or create. It's that subconscious program that's like, this is never going to work or something like that. And so belief repatterning helps us bring everything into this. Actually, yes, I can, right? Energy. But
Yeah.
we're talking around belief repatterning a lot. But for people who might not be familiar, could you give an example, not necessarily with all the steps, but about like some kind of belief that would be unsupportive that you could repattern? And since we're talking about conscious creation, maybe something along the lines of like wanting to manifest, whether it's like a new career or do anything, create anything in your life.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So I'll use a personal example.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so one of the things that on my journey in manifesting and on my journey in belief repatterning that has come up really quite strongly and intently is a fear of success, a fear of, a fear of success, that, successful people are terrible people. I don't know if you knew this, but in my head, that's successful people were terrible. Successful people, traditional successful people, they like ruin the world, and capitalism and like the environment and like it's burning and, climate change and politicians and like, all the traditionally successful people that I saw and was trained to see as successful in my society that I grew up in. I was like, they're terrible. They're terrible. I don't want to be them. I'm not a terrible person. But I wanted success. And so it was really kind of wrapped up in like, if I want success, does that make me a terrible person? I think I might be a terrible person. And so it was really like this, really spinny belief that was wrapped up in like, if they're successful and terrible and I want to be successful, does that make me terrible? And where I had to really redefine what success was in order to call anything into my life. Because if you believe that success is bad, you're not going to want it in your life. And so as much as you might try, like, I did the visualizations, I did the things and the other things, but if that's what's running in the background of your mind, you're going to be like, stay away, stay far away. And so, yeah, that's one of the big key beliefs for me that I got to overcome with belief repatterning, was that fear of success, because I thought success meant I was terrible.
Yeah, and that's that subconscious programming that's going to keep you from being able to be, do, or have the things that either you want or that are really part of your experience, that your soul is guiding you to. Like when I feel into your essence and your soul, like there are things you are here to do and create, and having the financial abundance to do them and the impact, the scope to be able to create that change is going to be essential for you, right? It's part of your soul mission for transformation and serving humanity. So I can see how that block was going to keep you from getting there, or at least getting there with any kind of grace and ease and without hating yourself, right?
Yeah. Well, and the fun thing is for me is that I did it the other way. I did it the other way, where you just force yourself through success and you like get the bit between your teeth and you just like do it. Right. I did it that way. I wanted to start a business. I was developing workshops in my early 20s. I was asking people, I was going to conferences. I was posting, I was on radio shows. Like I did all of those things with that background belief sabotaging me constantly. And it was like this constant fight and effort and like, they say I just need to do the thing, so I'm going to do the thing. But I wasn't focusing on how I was being. And so how I was being eventually won, because just focusing on doing the thing isn't sustainable if you're not on board with the thing.
Yeah.
So I did it the other way, and I knew that it didn't work. So it was like, well, if that didn't work, I guess I'll try something new, which is, completely transforming my way of being around success. And turns out that works much better.
Right? Exactly.
So much easier.
And that's the new paradigm. It's not grit and fight and do it at all costs regardless. It is be, then do, then have, right? And when you focus on your beingness first and your personal development, your mindset, your alignment, and it just makes everything so much easier. And that's kind of part of what we did in Evolve, right? We use some of those tools like belief repatterning to really get into the space of maybe I can do the things that my soul is directing me to do, those things that are in my heart that might feel too big. So I'm just in love with the example of how you did that for your entrepreneurship journey. So what is it that you are in process of creating, and what have you created in your business?
Excellent question. And the reason I'm chuckling and laughing is because, as you said, when you feel into my energy, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. And so over the last year, it's really been like, what about this? What about this? I'm going to create this, and then I'm going to create this, and then I'm going to create this. And so, I've kind of gone a little bit off of pure belief repatterning and created some, conversation masterclasses on how do we have, real conversations, and what are the tools that we need to have in order to come to a conversation, especially a polarizing conversation in politics or the environment, COVID, and any of those conversations, and how do we come to them with a full tool belt so that we can really dance in partnership with somebody else in a conversation. So I've done that. I tried a coaching program, and that was really fun. It was called Be the Change. It was around, being the change in the world that we want to see. It was around that idea. And that was a combination of belief repatterning and a combination of skills that I think is important. Skills like when you look on the internet, how do you verify research? What are the things you look for in a website to tell if it's a valid website or if it's like a knockoff website that somebody has copied and has changed. So things like that. What I'm currently doing, because those were like my learning steps. Mm-hmm. Those were the beginnings of like, what do I really want to create, and refinement of that. And so what I'm creating now it's the evolution of Be the Change, and it's called Unlearn and Awaken. And it's more so about the transformation that happens inside, in order so that we can have a transformation happening outside. So it's really mind, body, soul, community. Those are the pillars that we work through. It's a 4-month intensive program that really focuses on how do we be human? How do we be human and create peace within ourselves so that when we come into our community, we can create peace within our communities? And it's really my dream is to create a culture that is peaceful. And in order to do that, it requires a certain level of mastery. In fact, because peaceful cultures are really complex, because there's a level of mastery that you need to have over yourself in order to be like in the community. Mm-hmm. And so that's my dream for that big project. And right now what I'm offering is belief repatterning, 6-session packages that I call a transformational adventure, because that's what belief repatterning is a transformational adventure.
Heck yes. Oh my gosh, that sounds beautiful. And I love how you're speaking into the evolution of your business. We've heard about it from the beginning, and how you had to go through your own personal transformation and try some things out, right? And then see what works and what doesn't work. And I think that's such an important message to anybody that is considering entrepreneurship or just human life. We don't have to get it right the first time. We're not going to. And even if we did, it still gets to grow and evolve as you do.
Yeah, it's one of the pieces, it's one of the kind of one of my foundational beliefs is that transformation happens in life, and transformation happens, and what that means is that there's like a transformation that happens in, like, say, a belief repatterning session or another kind of healing session. But then that transformation has to actually happen in real life. That transformation has to end in a new action, a new behavior, a new way of being, a new way of speaking, in order for it to take hold. And the opposite is true too. That the things that we do be, and like our behaviors in real life, they have the power to be transformational if we allow them to be. If we allow ourselves to be moved by life, we can heal from it. I am a big believer that our lives are set up, and both they're sometimes painful, and also they give us everything we need to heal. So there's that parallel. And when we engage with life fully, we give life the permission to heal us. That was
Breathe
a bit of a
that in,
tangent.
folks. No, that's beautiful. I'm just saying for people just to breathe that in and let it land. Because that's what we do with belief repatterning. We huff words, we breathe in their essence and allow it to become part of us. And you're speaking to my heart. Transformation is the first pillar in my business. Then we activate that connection with our mind, body, and soul in alignment. And then the aligned action, which is so, so important, because without that, by the way, your manifestations and creations are not going to go anywhere. Your evolution is not going to happen. It's like people sometimes will get stuck into the spiritual processes and the like gratitude journals and the manifestation lists, and they're like, I want to build a business, right? I want to become this, I want to do this. But you'll ask them, okay, so, like, what steps have you taken towards that? And it's like, oh, well, right. There's the aligned action piece that is so important for literally any transformation. Otherwise, it doesn't become embodied. It doesn't actually gel inside your soul. Otherwise, it's just this intellectual knowledge that you can hoard.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And like, to kind of, what does that look like? I mean, for me, when I was doing that first coaching program, it looked like creating a list of all the people I knew that might be interested in it, sending a text and then sending it out, and then like crying after, because I'm like, that was, really intense. But that's part of the transformation, is to that crying. That's a release of that old way of being and stepping into something new. Like that, it's part of it.
Absolutely. And yes, the edge there that some people would say is outside your comfort zone. We have a beautiful way of framing that in belief repatterning, because I don't want to go outside my comfort zone. It doesn't sound appealing. So how would you frame it instead?
Oh, yes. I love and this comes from Suze Casey, I think, is the learning zone, which which is so much more fun for me because, you know, I'm inherently curious and I like, oh, I can learn. I love learning. And I'm really adventurous. And so that really fits for me because I'm like, comfort. What it actually does is it kind of reins me back in. Instead of rebelling against the comfort, I can actually stay in the learning zone where I actually learn things instead of being all the way far out, you know, blowing up my comfort zone. So the learning zone is a really nice way to frame it in a way that allows, I think, people who like that comfort to step into it a little bit more, and the people who maybe are like me and who rebel against that comfort to engage a little bit more in the learning zone and to step back a little bit so that they can really learn and grow at a pace that's beneficial for them instead of at a pace that's detrimental sometimes. And what's really fun for that, I also really like snowboarding, and I'm a snowboard instructor. And so I renamed the bunny hill the learning zone, which it just gives me immense joy. And so that's the only reason I bring it up, is because I freaking love the bunny hill as the learning zone. It's just, it makes it so much more fun.
I love that because, yeah, we are wired to learn and grow, especially as kids. So I'm really curious. You spoke into it first about your misadventures when you were a teen, trying to find yourself, desperately looking for something that was really intangible and ephemeral because it didn't fully exist yet. It wasn't fully formed yet. So how might your experience have been different if you already had this idea of it being a learning, curious adventure to explore rather than something you needed to do?
Yeah. That that's a really good question, and also for me an intense question, because so much of my journey is like, okay, I can see why that happened. I can see, you know, why I chose that. And I was like, if I had a parallel life where this was from the get-go, I think I would have probably gone a bit of a different route. I might have become like a politician or something. Like I might be working for the UN.
Wow.
And trying to change from inside the structures that way. But it's hard to say because the spiritual side of me is really strong. There's a really strong knowing that exists inside of me that won't be quiet. And so it's hard to say that if I had the skills, if I wouldn't be farther along.
So I know for me, I also believe in everything divinely unfolding and life giving us what we need. So perhaps what I meant was not so much of like, like what would you have done, but imagine now being able to share this information like to the people that you were warning, right? Like that like, hey guys, just have some fun with it energy. If they can hold that perspective through their teen years.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Would that be supportive?
And
perhaps part of your message to these people, like don't just search for yourself, have fun, be curious, explore.
Yeah. Yes. So thank you for clarifying. Yes, I think one of the key things that it comes back to the learning part is how when I went through it, I was very much in like a fixed mindset, like yourself is defined and it's sitting somewhere inside you in like this box or something, and you just have to find it. And then once you find it, you will know. And that's just not the way it is. And so with much more, belief for patterning is much more based in learning right? So instead of finding yourself, it's more so learning about yourself. And that switch is really a paradigm switch, and where you can actually learn and develop yourself simultaneously as finding out who you are, what you like, what you don't like. And so, yes, this frame, I think, is incredibly helpful, especially if there is a young person who, really wants to, understand themselves and do some self-exploration. And I think there's room, Belief for Pattern is all about words, and there's room for the evolvement of some of the words that are used in kind of self-development or personal development, instead of like self-exploration, like self-development. Because that's really what it is you're developing yourself. And it's a process that never actually ends. And so it's a lot more accurate, and which I think makes all of the difference for people who are on that journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like self-discovery because it implies that you are this like mysterious wonderland that you can explore, and there is a center core of you and your soul essence that you can find, right? But that's also not even the same thing as yourself and personal development, right? Because there's your eternal nature, and then there's also this human avatar. And I love that idea of development because it implies too the choice, right? And that you can consciously direct that. And a big part of what we do in belief patterning is asking people to choose, like, how do you want to be in this moment? Because actually it's up to you. It gives you back that agency and sovereignty to be how you want to be instead of what you've maybe been programmed to be.
Yeah. And I think in this day and age, this time, that's a crucial piece of what we need to move forward collectively, to navigate big issues like our democracy, racism, climate change. We need to have that skill of being like, okay, this is who I truly am, and unlearning that what society tells me about society. Because, as we are creating ourselves in every moment, we're also creating the collective in every moment. And so it's such a big part of my mission is to highlight that piece, that inside and outside are not separate. They're really reflections of each other. And I know there's a lot, it's not just me who are saying this. There's a lot of people who are like, you create your reality. And it's really deeply, deeply true. And there's room to expand that into this collective society conversation that we're having. Is like, okay, how are we collectively creating this circumstance because of the way we are choosing to see it, because of the stories that are around it, all in our head and also in the media. And that connection to me is they're so linked like this. It's one of my big missions, is to bring more awareness around that, and to bring this, you create your reality, to bring it even deeper within ourselves, and to bring a healing aspect to it. What is out there that is showing us that needs to be healed?
Yeah.
And that's a big piece of what I do in my work.
I love it. And that's why those difficult conversations are important to you, I think, because of the massive scope of the transformation that not only you've experienced, but you're holding space for your clients and for the world to experience as well. I love it so much. Is just so much magic in connecting with people that have these kinds of soul missions. And it's, just this beautiful evidence to me of the world actually heading exactly where I feel it's going to go. That's one of my gifts, is to be able to feel into those future timelines. And I know we are headed to that place of peace where people do have harmonious interactions that celebrate each other. Not that they're always going to agree, but that celebrate the differences and the diversity. Because I know so many people just like you that are actively, consciously creating it, and in themselves first, and then rippling it out. And that is the most beautiful evolutionary alchemy that I know of. So I want to thank you so much for anchoring that in and teaching other people how to do that. So if people are really curious about your work, how can they best get a hold of you?
If people are really curious, they can visit my website, and it's ashleyvanbrabant.com. And there's a work with me button if they want to work with me. You can set up a Zoom chat and then just talk about what sort of transformation you're looking for in your life. Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Amazing. I'm just typing that in to the chat and not copying and pasting it. So hoping I got it right. And if I did not while I was typing it in, I will get that in the next few minutes here. But Ashley, this has been so beautiful. I love connecting with you about any time, about all things, but I love doing so many things that I don't always really dive deep into belief repatterning, but it's such an embodied part of how I work and how I live now. And it's been so much fun to dive into that with you. And also, just an aside before I forget, I don't know if I've told you this, but I actually moved to Edmonton to take that holistic healthcare practitioner program as well.
No way!
Yeah. And I didn't wind up taking it because I looked at it after I moved here. And I was like, oh, you know what? This isn't actually what I thought it was going to be. So I forget about that in my narrative sometimes, because now I'm like, oh, obviously I moved here to get married and have a baby with my husband. But it was that program that was a catalyst for me as well. So fun thread.
Interesting.
Right? Like weaving things together, just showing that soul connection. And I find that with so many people that are on that same soul mission, to give people their power back to consciously create their reality. Yeah, or co-create it, because we are doing it together in community.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Is
there anything on your heart that you would like to share before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. And I'm really grateful for your work. Because I've worked with you personally, and I've also been in the Evolve Accelerator. And the biggest gift I think that you've given me is the permission to play and be silly. It's a big part of who I am that got really squashed in my life by both depression and other things. So it's really important to me. So I'm really grateful that you provided the example and the space to have that part of me return home. So thank you.
That makes me so happy. Sacred play, I think, is the fastest way to come home to yourself, to learn and grow, and also to just maybe have some more fun with everything. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Thank you for having this conversation with me. Make sure, if you are curious about Ashley's work, if you are ready to explore and do some of those amazing transformational adventures with her, check out her website. And I will be back in about an hour at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. And I'll be talking with Nina Infinity about her soul's journey as an entrepreneur and her evolution. So I'll meet you back here for that. Okay. Thank you so much, Ashley. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk soon.